Inflation Vacation is back on KFAN. We have 9 chances for you to win $1,000 every weekday. That's every hour from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. To enter the keywords and learn more, head to KFAN.com. Inflation Vacation is powered by 2 men in a truck.
Yeah, Inflation Vacation. Those are fun words. Hey, real quick, before we get back into the world of sports, this would be normally the news, and it'd normally be brought to you by our friends at the St. Paul Saints. Season's over for the Saints, though, but we love you anyway, and thank you for a wonderful, wonderful season. How much fun. Either of you guys know that this was the truth? Lady Gaga visited Jimmy Kimmel Live on Tuesday and flaunted her Minnesota credentials.
Say what?
Yeah, Kimmel noted that the vice presidential debate was taking place as she was in the green room, and that her fiance, Michael Polanski, is a Minnesotan.
Really?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Really?
In fact, Lady Gaga then said she'd been to Minnesota recently. She and Polanski, who have been dating since 2020, were nearby and decided to road trip to the North Star State to take in the sights and attend a party. It was so fun, she said. He took me to a house party. Everybody was hanging out. We ordered pizza, and it was really cool. The couple hung out with his high school friends who told stories about his life before attending Harvard. It was just so nice, she said. People were talking about real-life stuff and just hanging out on a porch. She also made the journey relatable to Minnesotans, adding that they stopped at Culver's.
Oh, hell yeah.
Sweet.
That's
you have
right.
to, yeah.
So I wonder...
Really?
Michael Polanski, is that what
But
it's...
that's not a Minnesota company, right?
No, it's a Wisconsin company, but it's a...
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway, Michael Polanski, I wonder...
Polanski.
Yeah, I wonder... he's a tech entrepreneur. Yeah.
Harvard guy.
So it doesn't say
Sure,
where
he's a
his
big fan
actual
of the show.
hometown is?
It doesn't say, and I haven't looked into it too deeply. But maybe I should.
Yeah, maybe you...
He's probably listening right now, don't you think?
Imagine going to
I would
Culver's
say
and
probably is.
seeing Lady Gaga.
Yeah.
I wonder if I would know it was her.
I bet you wouldn't.
Yeah.
I bet I wouldn't be like, hey.
I think
Come
that's like
on.
one of those totally out of context
Really?
things.
Yeah.
If you saw her at Culver's and you just did like a walk by and you're like, what she looks like, that kind of looks like she's familiar, but I'm not sure who.
Yeah.
You would never think that's Lady Gaga at a Culver's.
Especially because I bet she's wearing her poker face.
Wow. That's pretty good.
You know what I mean?
That's pretty good.
Well, thank you.
I thought that was her for a minute.
Yeah, no, I sound a lot like her.
Wow.
No, that's cool, man. I like her a lot. She's pretty cool.
She is.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, she's great.
She seems cool. College football. Am I right?
Well, today is the first AHawk. It's we just said it's 55 days in a row of football.
Go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, wow.
Every
Charlie
day.
Sheen's pumped.
Yeah, every day until the Wednesday before Thanksgiving, we have football on, pro or college.
That's pretty cool.
Let's go.
I like football, man, and it's going by quickly, isn't it?
What do you think of the game last week? Bama, Georgia.
Let me tell you
How about
something.
that?
First of all,
Unbelievable.
Ben Joe and I spend a lot of time together.
Ben Joe.
Don't we, Ben?
We do.
You have a
And-
third
and I-
friend
and-
named Joe?
And I turned to Ben on the bus and I go, holy blank, they recovered the onside kick. And before I could show it to him, it was taken away. But then he showed me that catch at the back of the end zone from our wide receiver.
Oh, yeah.
Holy balls.
That's like the catch
Crazy.
of the year.
That's
It
a
probably
great
is.
catch.
Incredible.
It's the catch of the year so far.
So far.
Yeah. And
Probably-
then
probably-
I don't know any other catch that's going to top it right
No,
now. I'm
it's
just going to
so
say that right
good.
now. There's not
Right. So
another
good.
catch.
He's
No.
in his career, he's had 3 amazing catches.
Well, that North Carolina, was it North Carolina 2 years ago?
Nebraska last year, and then if you remember when they were at Wisconsin the year before that, it's a 3rd and long, and 8th and Calich-Manis throws a ball that you really couldn't see, but he finds a way to drag his foot, keep it in bounds, and many people don't think of that catch, but that catch was maybe the best of the 3. They're all 3 amazing catches. He's a heck of a wide receiver.
right. And then
And Dan.
I get to lovely and talented Appleton, Wisconsin. And I'm wandering around, driving around.
Driving around.
And I go into the bar and I'm talking to some of the people that work for the Vikings, and I say, "What's the score?" And they say, "Alabama's just blowing them out,
Crushing.
Yeah.
So I go up to the hotel room and take care of my business,
Wow.
Yeah.
because I got to work the next
Yeah,
day.
get
I
the
don't
poison
I
out,
don't
right?
need
Start
crazy
hammering
eyes.
You gotta be
away.
able
Yeah,
to
start
focus.
cracking
I
away.
don't need crazy eyes.
Yeah.
And then I turn the television on after I put my phone down, and suddenly I'm like, "What the hell just happened?"
Crazy.
And then that 17-year-old kid, who's legitimately 17 years old,
Yep.
goes and wins the damn game for him.
So,
Just effort and speed and talent.
well,
Unbelievable.
so as I was telling Ben, we were texting when this was going on.
Oh, you guys text more.
We texted.
We had a bet of the game.
Swap a lot of nudes.
Please be cool.
Guys, he's the only player in the history of Alabama that was the high school, and just a great state of football. He was the high school player of the year as a sophomore. Then he was again last year as a junior. And 3 days after the state championship, he actually decides to reclassify, which is done a lot in the South. You usually reclassify to go a year back, which is kind of odd.
In the South, you normally do that to get married.
Wow.
He reclassifies to graduate a year early. So he is supposed to be a high school senior.
He really legitimately is.
He is
supposed to be a senior in high school.
He is, and his NIL value went up from $800,000 to $1.8 million over the week, or actually that night.
Yeah.
So his value right now is crazy, and he is the best receiver in college football.
So he obviously is academically pretty smart too, because if you're going to reclassify a year ahead, you got to have enough sort of high school credits to graduate, right? And to get into Alabama or any college.
Yep.
I'm guessing
Has to be.
I mean,
But he is. I mean, if when you watch the replay, and that Jalen Milroe, who will be in New York around the Heisman Trophy, the quarterback for Alabama, he spots the safety in more of the middle of the field. So, which was odd because Georgia's got a lead. And, you'd think they kind of would play back and not allowing the big play to happen, just keep the ball in front of you.
Right.
So the safety's in the middle of the field, which is a long way to get sideline to sideline. So Jalen Milroe, after the game, saw that, or says, I see the free safety in the middle of the field. So I just threw it up, knowing he could probably make a play on the ball, this amazing 17-year-old Ryan Williams.
It's a Randy Moss 50-50 deal.
Totally.
Just like throw it up, don't make a play.
And that's all they did. And the kid makes this amazing catch and 2 different spin moves later. And earlier in the game, he had the bobbled catch that was, again, showed what focus he had to kind of bring that ball in for a big reception. And the comeback that Georgia had, a little bit like Minnesota for not, right? Because Georgia was totally down and out in that game.
Yeah.
Dead.
Carson Beck was seeing ghosts, man. He was just throwing the football
no
on the
wonder he
ground.
didn't play football then. That's scary as hell.
Yeah,
And I heard Maxo on Monday. Don't forget, it's not like they're playing like UCLA. These are the best teams in the country. So when he throws the ball up for a 17-year-old, he's also going against a Georgia defense that's top 5 players in the country. So that's the other context. Like, how does Bama let a team come all the way back? And then at the same time, how does Georgia let this 17-year-old burn them for a 75-yard touchdown and lose the game?
So going back to your point, though, about momentum, especially in college football when you're dealing with 18, 19, 20-year-olds, that's a real deal. When you watch that game and you see Georgia pick up some momentum, even though they were on the road, you could see them take over the game.
Yeah.
And you could see Alabama's defense literally on their heels, like, oh boy, let's who's going to give up the big play now?
And Ben, if I'm sorry to interrupt you, but isn't that the weird thing about the Vikings game last week? Is that it felt like a college football game for that exact reason?
Yeah.
Suddenly, Green Bay had the momentum, and they were back in the game.
Yeah.
It just took 2 quick, 2 turnover, a touchdown, a turnover, and a touchdown. It was like, oh snap, what just happened?
Well, that's the crazy thing. We've talked this year about just when you're watching football now in 2024, the first thing that I think we've said is, dang, the defenses are fast. I know they care if it's college or pro. And the other thing is, you don't need any time anymore. I mean, it used to be like, and there's a few teams that don't throw the football well, but I don't care if there's a minute and a half, if you're Patrick Mahomes or you have a shot. If Alabama, I mean, they were down, but like, well, there's 2.5 minutes left. They'll probably get in field goal position for sure. And they go ahead and win the game. And even when they won the game, you're like, well, there's a lot of time left. Georgia might come back. It's just crazy that when we were growing up, like, that game's done. Like, teams couldn't move the football that fast, especially against a great opponent. So,
Hawk, I'll share this non-football story with you just because we're talking about last Saturday night. So, pretty much every Monday for our host chat on Twin Cities Live, we just kind of like recap the weekend. Like, what did you do, Elizabeth? What did I do? Whatever. And then, I talk about the Vikings game during the football season. So I was just saying that, Saturday night was great because they were just like, what do you do in Appleton, Wisconsin? I'm like, well, let me tell you what I did in Appleton, Wisconsin. So I just kind of talk about like, we land, I just kind of get settled in. I go across the street to this place called Rye and I have dinner by myself. Right. And they're like, whoa. Like, you didn't go out to dinner with anybody? I'm like, no. Like, I just enjoy sometimes just like going to dinner, just on my own.
Amen.
And I was like, I had my phone, I had YouTube TV, I'm watching college football, I'm, ordering my own apps and whatever. And so I tell that story. I get an email from some lady, one of our viewers, and she's like, I just feel so sad that you went to dinner on your own. You need to, you need to like, find some friends on the road. And I'm like, no, lady, listen,
I'm good.
Listen, sweetheart, I appreciate your concern, and I know, Hawk, I'm bringing this up because you can attest to this. I wanted to go to dinner by myself.
Yeah, dude.
Like there are times, a lot of times, where like I just want to do my own thing.
Yeah.
Like Saturday, like Sunday morning. I went for a 10-minute walk down the road to get a cup of coffee on my own, sit there in the coffee shop by myself, think about whatever I want to think about, and walk back and get on the bus. Like, that's me time.
Yeah.
There's no doubt.
That's the best time.
Yeah. I mean, you saw that. I mean, my buddy, Jason Perry, was in town.
Yeah.
And I hung out with him and his family for a little bit. And then I was like, okay, bye. Great people whom I love and I don't get to see very much, but I also like to be by myself.
I know, man.
I'm an introverted extrovert, boys. That's just how it goes. Man.
Especially when now that we have these darn devices.
Oh,
right.
Wherever you go,
and there is there's something interesting that I want to watch, and I'm just watching college football games. Like I was going back and forth between other, YouTube TV has like 3 or 4 games on a time, or you can do the 4-box thing, and I was having the time of my life.
Yeah. That is heaven.
Little Penn State, Illinois. Yeah. It's a great night.
Yeah, Peggy from Plymouth. It's fine. I'm doing just fine.
Yeah.
Appreciate your concern, but we good. Yeah, right. I'm with you.
So Leber and I this week it's a pretty boring week in college football, actually, for the next couple of weeks. So the game that we decided on is in the SEC. We have Ben is taking number 9 Missouri, is traveling to number 23 Texas A&M.
I don't understand a word you just said.
And Ben is taking Missouri on the road +2. +2. The other big games that I think is a little bit for this Indiana guy, right, Hawk? I don't know how much you follow.
Let's go.
Number 23 Indiana.
Can you believe it?
5-0.
Unbelievable.
And I tell you what, it's a easy schedule, but damn, they are good.
I got to be honest with you. I didn't know that was going on until Barrero talked about it, and I'm like, I got to check and see what the hell is going on.
They're really good. Honestly, it's a new first-year coach, Signetti from James Madison. He has everyone believing. As Ben said, he doesn't have any of his own really recruits. And so he came in out of nowhere from James Madison. He's like, we're going to win. They were joking. They said, in one of his first recruiting trips, someone said, so who are you? He said, Google me. I win.
Wow.
That's pretty good. That's
That's pretty
awesome.
sweet.
He does.
Think about how much of a kick in the teeth that is for the old coach. That a new coach comes in year one with all of that guy's recruits.
Yeah.
And he's 6-0. You said 5-0?
Dude,
5-0.
Their last 3 years are 0-9, 1-8, and 2-7 in the Big Ten.
I can do better than that.
Wow.
Thank you, Rocco.
Yeah, thanks,
So
Rocco.
they're at Northwestern. So again, never bet against the nerds. But other than that, there's a couple pillow fights. You have Bowling Green, Akron. I always like to see a pillow fight.
Yeah,
because it's kind of fun to bet on,
especially if it's ladies.
But
your mic's on.
I'm sorry, what?
And then in high school football, we're kind of like they're past the midpoint of high school football. You have 3 teams in 6A that are still undefeated. Minnetonka, Maple Grove, kind of fighting it out, and then you have a really good Edina team still that I think is for real. So we're kind of in the midst of it. We're sitting in October. It feels like fall football.
Yeah, can we slow down a bit?
I know, right?
It's flying
by, dude.
Right.
I know.
It's almost 2025.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
It sounds like there should be flying cars.
Yeah, correct.
I did want to ask you about this too, because I should be paying closer attention. Is Illinois still rocking people's world, or have they taken a step back?
No, they're still good. They lost a tough game, but covered. They lost at Penn State, a big whiteout last Saturday night.
All right, yeah.
But no, they're for real. They're a tough team. So as Ben said, when you look ahead at that Gopher schedule in November, it's pretty daunting with Rutgers, which is playing great football. They travel to Nebraska for a big game this week.
Who's their quarterback?
John Brown.
Ethan Kalikmanis, our old guy, is at Rutgers. But they're a pretty physical team. So yeah, they're for real. Rutgers is for real. Illinois is for real. Obviously, Penn State's for real, and then we end it with Wisconsin, which you could debate.
Yeah,
I never
they're not
believe in
good.
Penn State. Penn State will find a way to flub
they'll
it
never
up.
be there.
They were down to Bowling Green.
Yeah, for sure.
You okay, buddy? Don't get choked out.
Yeah.
It's okay. They came back.
Sorry, they were down to Bowling Green earlier in the season,
They were.
and they came back and won.
Thank you, Fargo. You're the best in
Guys,
the world.
it's fun. We'll see you guys
It's
next
always
week.
great. We'll see you
Yeah,
next
man,
week,
we'll
man.
be here.
Let's go to Hy-Vee.
Time now for the Vikings Report, presented by Hy-Vee, the official grocery partner of the Minnesota Vikings. Linebacker Jonathan Grenard joins the power trip next, thanks to Hy-Vee. The Fan.
Head over to our contest page and enter for your chance to win tickets to see the Vikings take on the Lions on October 20th, thanks to Custom One Exteriors, the official home partner of the Minnesota Vikings. That's KFAN.com. Keyword contest to enter.
I mean, it's the Lions. Power Trip Morning Show. Welcome back. Ben Leber, Fargo just walked out. Always good to have Fargo in here. We will talk to Tom Pelissero in the next segment. So we'll make this one kind of a quick. So do me a favor there, Sauce or Sauce.
Yeah.
As we do Fan 5 here. Give me everything quickly except for Viking stuff, which we will hold on for .com Tom, which you'll be able to watch at KFAN.com/watch momentarily.
Will do, Daddy-O.
It's time for Fan 5 on the Power Trip, presented by All Around Property Preservation.
Thank you, all around.
The Padres swept the Braves by beating them 5-4 yesterday to advance to the NLDS. They battled the Dodgers on Saturday at 7:38. That means Luis is and the Padres move on.
Hey, quickly, Adam Abrams texted me a little bit ago and said that you said something was a best of 7, but it's a best of 5. Let me take a look, see.
I think ALDS is best of 5.
Oh, is
and
it
then-
really?
Yeah. And then it's best of 7 from there.
Yeah.
So best of 3, best of 5, then best of 7.
Okay.
As you advance, is that how it goes?
Yes, sir. Should be sweet, though. Padres, them and the Tigers, two hottest teams in baseball right now.
How about
man.
that?
How about the freaking Tigers?
Yeah. The Tigers swept the Astros in the 3-game series after beating them yesterday 5-2 to advance.
That's
They
awesome.
battle the Guardians on Saturday at 12:08. So 2 AL Central teams, 3 actually, are still in the playoffs. Ugh. And that means because the Royals battle the Guardians, 1 will be in the ALCS.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy. Man.
The Royals swept the Orioles in their best of 3 series by beating them 2-1. The Orioles scored 1 run in the 2 games. They lost by a total of 3-1 in the 2 games. The Royals will battle the Yankees on Saturday at 5:38, which I would bet Yankees fans are pumped about, that they don't have to play the Orioles.
I bet you're right.
Yeah. Especially a team they play all the time that's super familiar with them. I don't think they did okay against the Orioles throughout the year, but yeah, Kansas City's way more beatable.
The Brewers let me start over here. The Brewers are going to force a Game 3 because they won last night 5-3 against the Mets. Game 3 is tonight at 6. The winner of that will battle the Phillies in the NLDS on Saturday at 3:08.
Dude, that Jackson Chorio.
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Unbelievable,
He's
man.
20 years old.
20 years old. And hit 2 game-tying home
he's
runs.
incredible, yeah.
They said the only person that's ever hit 2 game-tying home runs in a playoff game was
John Brown.
I think it was John Brown. Aside from John, that was before they kept statistics. That's off the record. Was Babe Ruth. So always good company to be with Babe Ruth, man.
Wow.
That kid's
Can you
electric.
imagine? Jeez Louise.
Let's see here. All 3 hitting coaches for the Twins have been released, and then assistant bench coach will also Tony Diaz will also not return.
It was definitely their fault.
Yeah,
I
that'll
mean,
fix everything.
Well, as Common said yesterday, that's like Abbott and Swedberg deciding that Kara, that intern gal that they have, just getting fired because of Common's sagging ratings. It's not her fault.
Yeah.
Right?
So four coaches are the scapegoats, basically?
Yeah.
That's right.
That's like us firing Derek because this show is falling apart.
And he doesn't even work here.
Right, he doesn't even work here, right.
But you know what? We have to let you go, buddy.
I'll take the fall.
Thank
Must
you.
be done.
Appreciate that. The Gophers, we just talked about, but they battle USC on Saturday at 6:30. Pregame is at 4:30 on this station. The Gophers are 2-3. They are between an 8 and 8.5 point underdog on Saturday. USC is 3-1. And the Lynx and Sun are both tied at 1-1. They will battle in Game 3 tomorrow at 6:30. The Sun are -1. And the final
Countdown.
The final Wild preseason game is in Chicago, and that is tomorrow, right, Zacho?
That is correct.
And then they open the season, a week from today.
Yeah. How about that? So, there was more talk now that the preseason has lasted way too long of shortening that. So we'll see what happens there. But the Minnesota Wild back in action. Columbus Blue Jackets get down there early. They're going to do a whole green carpet deal. Barrero's going to be broadcasting live from down there as well. It's going to be a great opportunity to see the players before they kick off the season at the X.
Hey, Ben.
Yeah.
Should we go see a soccer game?
See, I thought about it. We have a mutual friend. I don't know if you are aware that potentially has a couple tickets to the Arsenal game.
Steve Lombardozzi.
See, I'm supposed to meet a couple guys there that are traveling.
You make a little money when you make a little money.
Yeah,
you do. Yeah.
You got to do what you got to do.
London
There is no free time, right?
Yeah.
That's right, baby.
So in my idle time, I'm going to try to make a little cash. So I'm trying to hook up with two of my buddies that are traveling in for the game, and I haven't figured out if I'm going to have the time to go on Saturday afternoon.
Right.
So I don't know. What are you thinking?
I don't know. I'm thinking about. Here's what I'm afraid of. I'm going to get there, and then I'm going to say, man,
I got to go to the bathroom and leave.
Because I should have been doing this over here instead.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking I'm going to check for concerts first. Because there's got to be a good concert in jolly old London town somewhere, right?
Yeah, see, but the thing are you talking Saturday night?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, the problem is, if you do a concert, the concert's going to be at night.
True.
And then you got to get back all the way to the hotel, which is an hour away.
Yeah,
you got to find transportation to go all the way out to our hotel. So, the nice thing about the soccer match is that I think they're all in the afternoon, so you can just do that, and then it'll be easier to find your way back to the hotel. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
I don't know. I have not figured it out yet. So I do understand that there's I think there's 2 Premier League games, and then I think there's a Champions League game, which is like the AAA, which I've heard the Champions League is actually a little bit more fun to go to because the crowds are just a little bit more crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is hard to believe that they'd be crazier than some of these Premier League games. I don't know. We got options.
The Champions League is like all of Europe, to my understanding. It's
is it really?
Yeah, it's like the best teams from Spain, England, and all that all playing against each other. So that would be sweet to see.
I think it is something that I'll say to myself, I'm glad I went to see that.
Yeah.
If I go to one,
The energy, I've never been to one in London, but just going to one in Brazil and not knowing anything about the 2 Rio teams, like the energies, I got to imagine, is just infectious there.
How about the butts? Were the butts good in Brazil?
The butts were so sweet. Oh my God.
I just wanted
My
to
eyes were popping out of my head like a cartoon. Yeah, it was, if ass was cash, then Brazil would be the richest country in the world.
Yeah, right.
So there's that. But yeah, I don't think you'll regret it, Hawk.
Good. I think I might do that.
Yeah, you got to go.
I don't know. We'll find out.
Yeah.
There's a little time. Might as well do some. I do know this. Speaking of time, when we come back from this break, we're going to talk to .com Tom.
Hell yeah, man.
He's going to tell us what's happening with your Minnesota Vikings and much, much more. For your official Minnesota Vikings morning show. It's Pirate Show Morning Show. We'll be right back with Ben Leber and more on The Fan.
Hey, Rubes, this football season, Bell Bank is giving one KFAN listener each week $1,000 to pay it forward to a charity of their choice. Just head over to KFAN.com, make the keyword contest to learn more and to enter today. That's KFAN.com, keyword contest.
Yeah, and we're going to give you that info in just a moment. But real quick, Zacho, is he there yet? Do we know? Is he with us yet? The man?
He should be. Yeah, he is. Hi, Tom.
Hi, Tom. Look at you. You look good in flat bill hats. I can't pull it off. I can't pull off a flat bill hat.
Really?
Yeah.
Is representing right there.
Yeah. It looks like a...
What hat is it?
It's an NFL hat, but it looks kind of like a green, like Athens, Greece kind of hat. I don't know.
What?
Greece.
Yeah,
like Greece is the word?
I don't know. It's free.
Yeah. Oh. There you are. So I'm guessing.
I like it.
I'm guessing that you are. You're not going to jolly old London town.
Not going to London. I'm in Los Angeles, and we'll be in studio for the pregame show on Sunday.
Oh,
good for you.
Well, if you need to check in, Ben will be there.
Yeah, I will be there. I mean, I have so much inside information there, Tom, that you're going to need to talk to me.
Hey, if you want to find out what's going on with Aaron Rodgers' knee, give me a shout.
Can you give us a preview?
Yeah.
What's going on with him?
I mean, he's swollen after getting knocked around in that game. He's 40 years old. By the way, Hawk, I'm hearing myself. If you're able to strip that out, that would help. There we go. That's better.
There you go. Sorry about that.
You're good. So, I mean, he got knocked around in the game. One of his knees is swollen enough that, there were parts of practice he wasn't doing. Now, he's going to play, and Rodgers has played through way worse than this. A couple of years ago, he played with a broken thumb. He's played with an MCL injury, a tibial plateau fracture, everything basically other than the collarbone the guy plays through. But, I'm a man in my 40s. I wake up sometimes and I don't really want to move my body a whole lot. And you have to wonder, does this stuff add up? We're 4 weeks into the season and the guy's got a swollen knee. He's his game has always been extending plays and being able to get outside the pocket. He's limited that a lot, I think, to kind of, be able to take some of those hits off his body. That's how he got hurt last year, was he held the ball a couple of times and got hit the wrong way and ends up with a torn Achilles on the fourth snap. So he's protected himself. But you saw last week when the offense isn't moving the football, when, they're struggling, he's trying to make some things happen. And he takes some hits that probably feel different at age 40 than they did when he was 30 or 25. You guys remember the 2010 season, the second year of Brett Favre with the Vikings, right? 2009 was magical right up until a pass that I don't need to remind Vikings fans about. But they beg Favre to come back in 2010. This is the most durable quarterback of all time. And he got knocked out of, I want to say, like 3 of his last 4 games. He got carted off in New England that year. He was like bleeding from his chin. He got knocked out in December from a game and then was ruled out the following week. Somehow, woke up on Monday morning and played and then suffered a concussion. Like, when you get to a certain age, and that's the guy that Aaron Rodgers grew up watching. It's part of why Rodgers has this mentality that he's going to play through anything. But even Favre at the end, it was like that stuff kind of, added up on him. So, we'll see where it moves forward here. Maybe he gets a little bit of a boost by acquiring one of his old friends at some point here over the next month. But right now, it's just going to be interesting to see kind of how does that Jets offense, coming off a really rough game, how do they function, and how does Rodgers look, knowing that, as much as he's trying to limit himself in terms of his pocket movement and getting outside the pocket recently, maybe his movement's even a little bit more limited against the Vikings defense and a pass rush that's been really, really good.
Well, and what do we make of just their dynamic on the team? I mean, he seems unhappy. Saleh seems to be like trying to downplay all this stuff. It seems like he's got to kind of handle him with kid gloves. Garrett Wilson and Rodgers are not on the same page, and they don't seem to be like maybe getting along if you read some of the reports and listen to some of the things that are coming out of New York. So like just the overall dynamic of the team, I mean, is that real? Is it not real? What do you make of it?
I think the Saleh-Rodgers dynamic is overblown because you're talking about things like, Saleh making a post-game comment about, well, maybe we're not ready to handle all the different things that, we're doing with Cadence when they had however many false starts. I think it was like 5 false starts in that game. Rodgers' answer is, well, this is, like guys have to be held accountable and they have to, do better with that. That's kind of in line with how Rodgers always was in Green Bay too. You remember the year where they kind of flipped and went to all those young receivers and how frustrated Rodgers got, and he's always been a bad body language guy and all those things. When he talks in a post-game setting like that, or a frustrating game, like this is kind of the Rodgers that I would expect to hear. I don't get the sense from everyone I talk to that there's some major problem here. Yeah, when you lose, everybody's ticked off, everybody's frustrated, but it's still early in the season here. They got to work out some things offensively. It's not like Robert Saleh is the one calling the offense. It's Nathaniel Hackett with Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers runs a lot in that offense. So when they're not effective, a lot of it, lies on the quarterback's shoulders here. I think that, the fact that he's in that market, and again, the bad body language and Rodgers' propensity to be very blunt at times about things, we didn't get a taste of that last year. Because last year it was the offseason and it was hard knocks. And let's celebrate it. Victory tour, he's here. And then 4 snaps later, he's out. And everything, all the daggers were directed at Saleh and at Zach Wilson and at everybody else on the team. Now again, because of that media market, Sauce Gardner tweets something and it becomes a story. Garrett Wilson, makes a comment on a podcast where he's, given a fairly honest answer about just, we're very dialed into what we do. We're not doing a lot of different stuff. And everyone's like, ooh, they're not being innovative enough on offense. Like, what? You think Aaron Rodgers is going to reinvent how he's won 4 NFL MVPs at this stage of his career? No, they're going to run that offense here. So listen, if you make a trade for Davante Adams, you're going to have another mouth to feed, and that's going to be another complication here. I don't get the sense that anything is imminent right now on that front, but that would definitely add one more piece to this puzzle here. If they play well, none of this is an issue. I don't think that there's some deep, dark problem that's happening here. But when you lose, particularly in a place like that with the expectations like the Jets have, everything gets magnified.
Speaking of Davante Adams, give us a team other than the Jets that you could see making a run at the wide receiver that no longer wants to be in Las Vegas.
Well, here's what I would tell you, Sauce, is the Jets are the top choice for Davante Adams based on everything that I've been told. Him and Rodgers, Rodgers both privately and publicly, when he was on the golf cart and said, I can't wait to play with him again. He's been recruiting Davante Adams throughout. The Jets acquired an extra 3rd-round pick in the draft last year when they made a trade. And so, they've got additional ammunition. Part of that, I'm sure was to have some resources if you needed to make a move at the deadline. And Davante Adams was the logical guy. This has been rumored all the way back to last year. Another team that Davante Adams would be interested in playing for is the Saints. That's where Derek Carr is. He initially, his old Fresno State teammate, he went to the Raiders, got to play not even one full season with Derek Carr out there before he got benched and ultimately got released and ended up with New Orleans. The Saints, and to a lesser degree the Jets, they have some cap considerations here. So any team making a trade is going to have to adjust that contract. Some other teams that would make some sense, the Bills would be one. They like their young group, but the opportunity to go play with Josh Allen, you would think would have some allure to Davante Adams, who's 33 years old. This is he's got a chance to get maybe one more contract out of this. He thinks a lot about legacy and things like that. Steelers would be another team that would make sense because they've been in the receiver market going all the way back to when they were trying to get Brandon Ayuk. And then you got some dark horse teams like, the 49ers would be a team that I would throw out there. They run a pretty similar offense to the one that Davante Adams knows really well. Right now, they don't have a clear sense. They still think that Christian McCaffrey's coming back this year. They don't know when. Brandon Ayuk hasn't exactly gotten off to the hottest start. You paid him a lot of money. Debo, you could use him in different ways. If you brought in Davante Adams, maybe use Debo more in the backfield and more in the slot and different places in that offense. And the 49ers have shown a propensity over the years for making the splash in-season trade, none bigger than when they got McCaffrey a couple of years ago from the Panthers. There's other teams too, but think about this in terms of how complicated this is, because this is not, fantasy football, Madden stuff. You have to take all the different things into consideration. For one thing, Davante Adams is hurt right now. This is not a fake, ow, my hamstring. He really got hurt in practice last week. It's probably a 1 to 2 week injury. He's making $1 million a week. So a team that's acquiring him probably isn't, not saying this can't happen, but probably isn't in a big rush to say, hey, let's bring him in this week and pay him that $1 million to not play. So it's probably going to be a couple of weeks. So you take that into account. Second part is the contract. He's making $1 million a week. Any team that's acquiring him is going to need immediately, you have to have the cap space to execute the deal. So, for one thing on that front, he has balloon numbers in 2025 and 2026. When he initially signed that deal, those were just there to pump up the average to $28 million a year when it was really on paper a $22 million per year deal. But now those numbers are here. They're in 2025 and 2026. So if you're a team that's going to acquire him, you're either adjusting that deal or you're getting a 11, 12 game rental for a guy that you're going to have to release or figure out a way to restructure his contract when we get out to March. Also, remember, in order to restructure somebody's contract, even for cap purposes, even if it's the Raiders paying down the number by giving him a signing bonus prior to trading him, which it doesn't sound like they have a real urge to do, or if it's a team adjusting it, paying out a signing bonus to Davante Adams, pushing those cap hits into the future to make it palatable on the cap in the short term, which again is something that has to be executed prior to the trade because you have to have the cap space at the time that you make the trade. Davante Adams would have to sign that. So effectively, it's a long way of explaining he can veto a trade anywhere. If he decides in his mind, you know what, I actually only want to go one place, he can effectively veto anybody else. It's a lot like the Brandon Ayuk situation where it was, all right, Patriots are in. You're going to the Patriots. I think I want to go to the Steelers instead. Okay, or I want to go to the Browns instead. Okay, Browns, we got a deal locked in there. You know what? I'm not going to sign that either. I want to go to the Steelers only. And eventually it got to a point where, the 49ers went back to the table and they were able to work something out with him. Adams can veto a trade. You don't need a no-trade clause. You can simply be a guy who's due a big number and refuses to restructure his contract. So, we can talk about all these other teams here. I would say, and I'm not, big on prognosticating these things, but I would say if I had to sit here and guess how this plays out, Davante Adams is a New York Jet within the calendar month. He hasn't said, I'll only go there. He hasn't demanded, I'll only go to the Jets. And there's some thinking among, certain league executives that in a situation like this, particularly when a quarterback on the other team is actively recruiting your player, you might want to say, just for, defending your own business practices, you know what, I'll trade you, but you're not going to the Jets. I don't get the sense that that's the approach right now from the Raiders either, but there's a lot of moving parts here. How does it end up? He probably ends up with the Jets at some point in the next month, but it's not a done deal. There's not something in place right now. And, oh, by the way, they're getting on a plane to London tomorrow.
This is Tom Pelissero, NFL Network. Thanks to Bell Bank. I know. I had to spit that one out. Let me follow up with that about all of that, though. Does it make sense for him to even go to the Jets, knowing that Aaron Rodgers is probably done after this year? I mean, I get the sense that he's probably done after this year. Like, it seems like a short-term solution and maybe not the best thing for him going forward long-term.
Well, and here's what I would say to that, Ben. It's a valid point. But remember, again, with those balloon numbers that he's got on his contract, he's not making 36 plus in 2025 and 2026. So anywhere he goes, he's either getting cut or he's getting a new deal. So effectively for the Jets then, this becomes like a 12-game, 11-game, 10-game, whenever he's ready to play proposition plus playoffs. What are you going to give up in that trade? That's the other component of this is if it is a rental, for a 32, 33-year-old receiver, you're probably not giving up, the equivalent of a first-round pick or even a second. Is it a third that you're doing with it? I think that for Adams, also remember this: if he goes to New York, the money he's losing just in taxes from a no state income tax state in Vegas. Like, he's given up millions of dollars for the rest of this year by going to New York, New Jersey. But for Adams, he's also thinking about. Again, he thinks a lot about legacy. I've always respected Davante Adams. I don't know him super well, but I've interviewed him, a dozen times over the years. He suffers no BS. He's very direct, which is why when, the head coach accidentally likes an Instagram post about how you're not going to be on the team anymore, he doesn't take kindly to that. But he's also a very intellectual guy, and he understands, all these dynamics. He's got a long streak. I mean, I would say this, if it comes to it, and if there's no trade done in the next couple of weeks, hypothetical, and Davante Adams is healthy, I do think he plays for the Raiders again. I don't think this is I'm just going to, shut it down and refuse to play because, he's got the streak of 100 catches and 1,000 yards. He cares about the numbers. He cares about what he's putting on the field. He was on the sideline last week, even knowing, this is probably not long for this. He's wearing Raiders gear. He's not pulling any of the shenanigans you see other players pull here. But there's something about getting back together with Aaron Rodgers and going to New York and trying to have one magical run for a guy that, to your original question, Ben, if we're talking about like the future and everything, who knows what the future holds for Davante Adams? Maybe he's done. Maybe he doesn't want to play a whole lot longer after this year. And either way, if he just goes on effectively his existing contract, if you don't adjust 2025 and 2026, which if I'm Davante Adams' agent, I'm saying we don't want to adjust those numbers. We want you to get cut or, be able to restructure a new deal after the season because that gives us all the leverage here. You're just thinking, well, how do I get the most out of this for the rest of the season? Do I want to play with Gardner Minshew in an AFC West where, it's fair to say on paper you're third or fourth probably in that division? Or do you want to go to the Jets, get all the smoke, take on all the expectations, and see if you can put together a magic type of run? The Jets have to, think about all these things too. You already got Garrett Wilson, who maybe isn't super jazzed about his target share, and then you're going to bring in a guy who's close with the quarterback. Mm-hmm. I mean, Rodgers already is throwing the ball a lot more to Alan Lazard than he is to Garrett Wilson. Now you're going to bring in another guy that he's got history with. Garrett Wilson's, the best player that they've got on offense. He hasn't gotten the ball a ton, which is where, going back to the question about what teams would make sense, Buffalo doesn't have a Garrett Wilson. I can sit here and make the case for why he should go to Buffalo, but he doesn't really know anybody at Buffalo. He knows Hackett. He knows Lazard. He knows Aaron Rodgers. That's a big part of the allure, and that's why they're at the top of his list.
All right, let's shift gears over to the team that the Jets are playing this weekend. That's our Minnesota Vikings. And so let me ask you, Tom, let's just forecast this thing out. And it's more of just like, I want to get your feelings on this whole scenario. Let's just say the Vikings keep rolling. They win in London. They've got a tough game after the bye against the Lions, which they host at home. I mean, it's not crazy to think that if they can get by the Lions, they're 10-0. I mean, can you believe, even at maybe worst, you look at their schedule, they could be 9-1, 8-2, and sitting really well as maybe the top seed in the NFC. I mean, I just wanted to get your thoughts on just how the season's going and the idea that our Minnesota Vikings could be the number one team in the NFC more than halfway through the season.
Well, Ben, you know the league as well as anybody. Like, every week, every team's got a shot. We wouldn't have thought, the Ravens looked terrible in their first couple of games. And last week, they blew the doors off the Bills, who to that point were probably the best team or looked like they were the best team in the NFL. It's a week-to-week league, so you never want to get ahead of yourself. But I think back to when we were having this conversation before the season, you looked at those first 6-7 games. I think I said it on this show, like, if you're 4-3, even 3-4 coming out of those games, you're going to have a chance because the schedule does lighten up. It's really front-loaded in terms of competition. You don't want to go lose your next three, obviously, but you're already in a position where you're ahead of the game. You're playing with house money. And nobody, I don't think, coming into the season would have said, yeah, you're going to go in and sweep the 49ers and the Texans in those two home games, and then they come back and go into Lambeau Field last week and get another win. So they've definitely, gotten themselves in a good position out of the gate. You're right. If you go and beat the Jets on Sunday in London, which those games are always a little weird, that it's the travel, it's the scheduling. Sometimes teams come out and play completely flat. I'm not anticipating that's going to happen with the Vikings because they got a lot of positive juice going on both sides of the ball right now. But weird stuff happens all the time in the London games. Yeah, I mean, if you can win, 2 of your next 3 and be 6-1, if not 7-0, then absolutely, you're in a really good position to make a run at this thing. I don't know that we have really dominant teams league wide. In terms of the whole league, the Chiefs are 4-0. The only other unbeaten team. I don't know that you watch them and with the eye test, you're like, boy, this team is just dominant. They're kind of stop and start on offense, and they're really beat up on that side. They've lost a couple of their wide receivers. Travis Kelce really hasn't gotten going yet. The Bills, up until last week, it was said they're the team. Now it's like, well, the Ravens. Well, the Ravens are 2-2. They've got their flaws too. On the NFC side, again, we're way out from talking about it, but I mean, we're talking about it now. For the number one seed, who are you sitting there and you're like, boy, that's the one team I don't want to see. The Commanders are 3-1 with a rookie quarterback who looks awesome in Jaden Daniels right now, but I don't know that you're sitting back and going, well, they're going to be the number one seed. The Cowboys and the Eagles, they're two of the top teams in terms of the talent level, but they haven't really, sustained it early on. The 49ers are the defending NFC champs. They're always there. They're super beat up right now, too. I think the NFC is just so wide open, and the more distance and padding the Vikings can give themselves, the better the chance that not only can they win the division and be in the playoffs, but maybe they're going to have some home games when it comes down to it.
That's Tom Pelissero. You're the man. Thank you so much, my friend. We'll talk to you next week, okay?
See you, fellas.
There you go. Tom. Thanks to our friends at Bell Bank. And by the way, here are the winners for the Bell Bank Pay It Forward promo from last week and this week.
Oh, sweet.
First of all, Don Conwell submitted the Minnesota Ovarian Cancer Alliance. The Minnesota Ovarian Cancer Alliance funds research, offers support to women and families, educates the medical community, and raises awareness. Check out mnovarian.org. And then Ryan Gleason nominated Thumbs Up. Thumbs Up is all about embracing those struggling and breaking the stigma around mental health, connecting, supporting, and encouraging one another to talk about their feelings and challenges and to keep moving forward. We want to educate and teach about mental illness and the warning signs of suicide and what you can do to help others who struggle. and community awareness as well. So those are your Bell Bank Pay It Forward promo winners. Each of those organizations, thanks to the people who nominated them, are going to get a $1,000. If you want to nominate an organization, please go to KFAN.com, put in the keyword Bell Bank, and nominate your organization today. Thank you, Bell Bank, and thank you, Tom Pelissero. We'll break. Come right back. It's the Fan.
Bye.
The Fan.